I have reviewed Disney films from every single year apart from 2 years, and one of those years is 1972. So I had a look to see what Disney had released then, and it was quite slim pickings, to be perfectly honest. So I decided to settle on Snowball Express because A, I'd never heard of it and I was kind of curious, and B, it was on Disney Plus. It was pretty convenient. Having now watched it, I can say that I didn't mind watching it. I didn't love it. It's never going to be a firm favourite, but I can now say I've watched it, I can tick it off my list, and it wasn't a terrible experience. So this was released, of course, in 1972, directed by Norman Tokar, written by Arnold Margolin, Don Tait, and Jim Parker. And this stars Dean Jones as a character called Johnny Baxter, who inherits from a kind of distant relative a hotel. And it's very dilapidated. They've realised they are now stuck with this hotel, and it actually cost them money, and there are no visitors, no guests. What on earth are they going to do? Bearing in mind he has a wife and 2 children, a pretty classic Disney setup. And he looks around him and realises that there are mountains and hills upon hills of snow, and it seemed like a logical solution for him to turn it into a ski resort. But things aren't exactly plain sailing, partly because John Baxter himself cannot ski. He has never skied. How can somebody who cannot ski get a loan from the bank to open a ski resort? I won't say any more about the narrative, but it was interesting enough. Now, I'm not that interested in skiing, by which I mean I'm not interested in skiing at all, so the subject matter didn't interest me. But Johnny Baxter, I thought was a likeable character, a likeable protagonist. The whole family dynamic worked very well. They worked very well as a unit. So I was interested enough in their journey. I wanted the best for them. I hoped that everything went well for them. Whether that's the case, of course, I'm not going to say. And I'd say maybe the first third of it was really interesting, and then it got a little bit repetitive, and then it got really dull because something happens that's meant to be, well, I assume it's meant to be the most exciting, thrilling part when emotions are at their highest, the stakes are the greatest, and I found it to be dull and repetitive, and it dragged on for too long. If it had been shorter and more concise, it would have actually been quite interesting because it would have been quite action-packed. But I felt it was repetitive, and they dragged it out for so long that I did lose interest. So it definitely isn't a brilliant film. I think it is repetitive and sometimes just not interesting, but there were moments where, as I said, I was actually interested in the family and I hoped for the best for them. So those scenes were nice enough. It definitely feels like a 70s film. It does feel dated, which in itself is not a problem, but I'm not the biggest fan of 70s films, for no specific reason, but when I look at the films that I've watched and reviewed over the years, very few, ridiculously few of them are from the 70s. So it's not my biggest area of interest. I'm pleased to say I've seen it. I'm pleased to say that I now only have 1 year left from Disney. This is not their greatest output. It doesn't surprise me that I hadn't seen or heard of it. But if you're a Disney fan and you want to watch their entire catalogue, you could probably do worse than Snowball Express. By no means is it terrible.